Hi, my name is Crystal Mohammed Dormer, and I'm here to present my HSER Human Services 508 PowerPoint for Liberty University. As we start, we're going to go to slide 1. Slide 1 talks about my introduction, the definition of communication, reviewing of overarching goals, discussion of enlarging the conversation, my personal background and behavioral blend, potential personal barriers, solutions to noise pollution, listening skills and effective communication, and finally my plan of action, as well as my list of references used for this PowerPoint. The definition of communication. John Stewart describes communication as the continuous, complex, collaborative process of verbal and nonverbal meaning making. Peterson states that communication at its best can mean applying love and acceptance in how we listen, talk, and value each other. Peterson breaks down communication into 2 levels. The first gives and receives information and discusses points of view. The second level moves deeper with words towards a more satisfying relationship. The first is a more superficial level of communication, and the second is that of a deeper level of understanding and a deeper level of communication. Next slide. The next slide we're going to discuss the overarching goals, what my overarching goals are. Burley Allen's, my overarching goals is to be a better and more effective listener. We can all do better in this area, and these are my levels that Burley Allen discusses. Burley Allen describes 3 levels of listening effectively, which leads to greater communication. Level 1 listener. The level 1 listener is empathetic listening. Listeners refrain from judging the talker and places themselves in the situation to understand the speaker. The listener expresses themselves verbally and non-verbally. This is the level 1 listener is the level that we all strive to be at. We all strive to be in a situation where we're empathetic and we're understanding and we're compassionate to the people that we counsel or the people that come into our path. A level 2 listener hears the words but doesn't really listen to what's being said. The listener makes little or no effort to understand the speaker's input. It's like you're talking to someone and you're hearing what they're saying, but you're not really listening, you're not really focusing. And believe it or not, the communicator will know that you're not listening and being attentive. A level 3 listener is someone that listens in spurts. A listener only listens to enough to have an opportunity to speak. That's the kind of, I get myself caught up in that sometimes. You listen and then you hear a point in the conversation and you focus on that point and how you're going to help them. So you really don't hear the rest of the conversation, you're just kind of focused on that particular point. Let's move on to the next section here. My personal goal. My personal goal is to give and receive information in a non-judgmental way. This is where I strive to be more like Jesus. Jesus is the epitome of being non-judgmental. He used every kind of person in the Bible that he could possibly think of that we today would think of, oh my God, I don't want them in my environment, I don't want them around me. So we as Christians and leaders and counselors need to strive to be more non-judgmental because we all have issues and we all have a past. So let's move forward and be loving and compassionate. My second personal goal is to use verbal and nonverbal listening skills, especially when dealing with children. My big thing is when I speak to someone, I'm listening intently, I fold my arms like this and I nod, then the person interprets it as this is body language that I'm closing off, when actually I'm listening, but that's my style. So I've had to learn to sit and put my hands on my desk, put my hands in a non-threatening manner. That's a nonverbal communication. My third goal is to show compassion and understanding the way the Bible teaches us. Luke 24:45 states that Jesus opened their minds to have understanding of the Scripture. I desire that daily to understand those I work with. I desire to open my mind. I desire to be open not only in the revelatory experience of the Bible, but also in what I have to hear and what the Lord is willing to teach me. The fourth one is I desire to be one constant in the lives of those I work with and in my family, and that they know that I will listen and hear them. I want to be the go-to. I want to be the one that, you know what, you have a problem, go talk to my aunt, go talk to my mom. She's a good listener. That's a great attribute to me. Let's move on. Next slide, please. Enlarging the conversation. Enlarging the conversation is defined as understanding communication skills, recognizing personal weakness, and then developing a plan for improvement. The result of this would be positive and effective interactions with others. Effective talking and listening are taking place in the conversation, and both parties feel valued and respected in the end. Both parties feel that the conversation served them both in a positive manner. When you have a conversation and we're reaching out to others, we want to make sure that you understand what I'm saying. And not only they glean something from the conversation, but you also. So it's a wonderful community. It's a wonderful connection then. Let's move on to the next slide. The next slide, I'm going to talk about my personal background and behavioral blend. According to the Uniquely You test by Carbonell, I am classified as an IS personality. My behavior blend consists of the following. The I represents influencing, inspiring, and impressing. Talking is my asset, and I affect people with my words and stories. The S represents the part of me that is sweet, submissive, and soft. Out of the personality types, I am considered to be more sensitive than the other personality types. The only issue I have with this one is the submissive part. Not so much, don't see it. However, being able to be compassionate and understanding, I suppose I'm a little submissive. So let's move on. Next slide. Potential personal barriers. The following are several barriers that may form during a conversation. Personal perception, reception, and attention. Perception, reception, and attention is classified as how we see the individual, the first impression. First impression is everything. How we judge someone, how we feel about someone, how we understand someone, how we communicate, how that our first response to that person then. That is the first impression. The reception is our impression, how we respond to the individual, the attention we give that individual depending on our response, our impression. So therefore, once again, we have to learn not to be judgmental. Fatigue barrier. Pacing is important. We have to know the best time of the day when we are most attentive and the circumstance that are conducive to good communication skills. This is one for me that I'm working on. Fatigue. I drive an hour into work both ways, and when I come home I have an 11-year-old son. He wants to talk, share about his day, and mom just wants to relax and get acclimated a little bit. However, I was able to explain to him that, you know what, mom needs a little downtime. Give me a couple minutes, let me get situated, and then you can have me all to yourself and I'll listen to you. And that has worked out successfully because I acknowledged my fatigue barrier. I acknowledged what my issue was. The next barrier is nonverbal cues must also be used for positive communication. The way we stand, cross our arms, nod, all indicators we are actively listening to the other party. Nonverbal cues. I work with children with autism, and my nonverbal cues are very important. A lot of times they don't understand the verbal commands, so therefore I have to show it physically. I show my rewards by high fives or hugs or just showing a little bit of compassion physically. And that is my nonverbal cues for them. Let's move on. Our next section we're going to discuss is noise pollution. Burley Allen describes it as a distraction that occurs internally and externally that causes barriers and prevents the listener from hearing clearly. The internal ones are fatigue, fillers, emotional, personal problems, and worry. This is when you turn everything over to God and say, look, God, don't have time to handle this right now. It's all on you. Because he does say, turn your cares over to me and I'll take care of it. So let's hold them to that. The external noise pollution is noises, traffic, outside stimuli, room temperature, and lighting. Room temperature and lighting, I've learned quite a bit of that from my autism students. If you have a room with fluorescent lights and the buzzing sounds start hissing and going off, it distracts them. So it's very important to have the proper lighting as well. Solutions. Solution to the noise problem. A quiet place to converse. Regulate the room temperature. Be attentive to the talker. Eye contact. Maintain eye contact. Positive body language. Clearing the mind of personal issues. We've all got them, but we can't bring them into our workplace or when we're counseling and dealing with others. My plan of action. Lawrence states that developing good listening skills is a key step toward collaborating with colleagues and families. Listening skills will help one clarify and understand the message that are being sent. These are following steps that I intend to take from my collaboration of the coursework that we've been doing and the books that we've been reading. These are some things I came up with that will help me in the future. Talk less and listen more. Goes without saying. Not to get defensive when questioned. Do not solve everyone's problem. Effectively listen and guide the individual to solve their problems. People need to know that they have some kind of authority over themselves and some kind of control. So if you sit and you give them all the answers, then what are you there for? They need to feel a sense of accomplishment by figuring out their own solutions. Ask questions to elicit an honest response. Restate what the individual is saying so that the person knows you are listening. Do not be judgmental. Listen as God will direct. Elicit the assistance of the Holy Spirit. Allow the peace of God to guide and lead you. This is key to me. Before I go into any kind of counseling sessions, or I talk to my administration or my students, I always ask God to guide me. Father, show me how you want me to reach out to that person. Show me what I need to do to be a better listener. Show me how to be empathetic and non-judgmental. Show me, Lord, and just go before me and clear a path. That's my secret. Implement the talker-listener card in my conversations to make sure I'm upholding the standards of a good listener and fair talker. Although we think that we're good listeners and communicators, when I read that card, it seemed silly at first, to be honest. When I read the card and started implementing it, it actually worked. It actually helped me to stop myself and before I would say something out of place, and it actually helped the other individual have the opportunity to speak. So they work. Let's move on to the next slide. My bibliography. My bibliography covers the books in the course, as well as the Carbonell book and the puzzle, the Uniquely You quiz that we had. And I just want to thank you, and I hope that this video has blessed you and has encouraged you to go on your journey to be a better human services provider.